Welcome to another episode of Axe of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey, coming to you from a weird room. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
It's a very nice room, Kat. Don't talk shit about the room. It's got white walls.
Okay, I'm just going to talk shit about this yellow bedspread and weird towels and everything.
Yeah,
But
the
look, it
bedspread's
was the
kind
only place in the house that I could podcast, okay?
of.
I'm so dedicated to the cause of the Blood God that I am coming to you from the road. I brought all of my podcast stuff, and I am here now to talk about RPGs. And to help me do that is Eric Van Allen.
I like your shelves full of sheets back there. Just a lot happening. You got a bookshelf full of sheets. Captivating.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I just kind of like plop my towels on the floor.
I put books there, but apparently we went with sheets this time.
Yes, this week we're going to be doing a mailbag. Yep, it's letter time.
It's letter time. It's letter time.
We asked for your questions and you responded over on the Discord. Sent us a ton of great questions that we are going to read here on the show. So please look forward to that. We'll be getting to all of that in just a moment. But first, if you are a fan of the podcast, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Please leave a review on the podcatcher of your choice. You can find me on Twitter at _Kappa. Nadia is at Nadia Oxford, and Eric is at CMusi. And we are on Patreon, patreon.com/bloodgodpod, where there's tons of bonus content that you can get for the show, including Charlene Dropouts. We just had a special Valentine's Day episode, Nadia Oxford.
Nadia Oxford's mic is not working?
Yes, I think Nadia
Oxford's mic is working now. Sorry about that. Yes, we did, Kat. We had a very spicy Valentine's Day episode where we talked about the hotties like we did last year. Of course, we chose different ones this year. That was the rule. So if you want to see what monsters Victor is lusting after this year, you're gonna have to become a $5 subscriber. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Do it.
We also have lots of other bonus content, including the Pantheon of the Blood God, the Sakura Tyson monthly Pantheon is in full swing right now. Go join that over on the Discord, and if you just contribute $1 a month, you will get the episode ad-free and without any and you'll get access to the Discord. Yes, ad-free and without any ads. That's what I was gonna say. But one way or another, your generous donations help support the podcast, and we are incredibly grateful for all of your help. Okay, it's time now for the mailbag. And we got lots of great questions. And the first question is from Solarn, and they ask, is leveling fun? What RPGs have the most satisfying leveling systems? And what are the best RPGs without leveling or fixed level ups? I think leveling is pretty fun. That's why we like RPGs, right? Numbers go up.
Numbers go up. I like the grind. If I'm in the mood, just put on an album and just like bliss out and let my thoughts churn like that little cartoon Homer has running in his head. That's me when I relax just with a game and level up. As for games that are most satisfying to level up, I can name a few, but there's a game I can't talk about that I kind of like, but there's as for not leveling, for fixed leveling, I always go back to Illusion of Gaia, which is a game where you cleared enemies on a screen, and that was often a little more difficult than it sounds, and you automatically get some kind of upgrade, whether it's like life, attack, or defense. I think is the way to go. And yeah, I just it was someone else kind of taking care of my leveling while I still got the satisfaction of doing it. So that's my answer for that, at least.
This is gonna sound weird, but I think of Pokemon when I think of good leveling. Mostly just because
I was thinking the same thing.
it's
Yeah,
like it's not very standard leveling because you're not working with a like static party theoretically. It's kind of moving and rotating in and out depending on what you need for each region and what you're catching and what you want to keep. But there is something about the way that Pokemon, when it's done well, has these like bars that you clear for each region, and you can feel yourself like getting stronger and stronger and stronger as the game goes
Yeah.
on. I think that's the hardest thing for a game to get right, is to have that natural curve, that natural up ramp of you are having to work to get stronger, to be better than you were before, and that's like the good part of leveling. But when done right, like in Pokemon, I think even like recent Pokemons, honestly, even though the open world thing in Scarvi kind of fuddled with this a little bit, you have this sense of progression, like you're really moving forward and advancing. Like I always think of the red blue going around in the circle, right? And you end up back home when you're done with all
Yeah.
the gyms, but you're so much stronger than you were when you left. And I think that is like just so compelling as like as a gameplay thing. And
Just
seeing
imagining
those
Red just
numbers.
kind of like stomping into his hometown. He's like 6 feet tall and he's got like a ripped chest.
You walk into
Mom,
that grass again for the first time, and you run into like a Pidgey or something, and
Weedle.
like yeah, and
Step on
now
it.
you're just gonna like nuke it from orbit with your Charizard.
There's that comic of like Charizard used Hyper Beam, Pidgey died.
Just straight up dies. Not even faint. Pidgey gets atomized.
I like leveling. I mean, when I first started playing RPGs, and Nadia, maybe you can relate to this as well. When we were playing NES games, platformers were hard. NES
Yeah.
games were often hard and could feel unbeatable at times. So just being able to level up made them feel manageable in a way that other games didn't.
I totally
Um,
agree. Yeah.
So at base, and then like, what's one of the reasons that Japanese developed RPGs in particular are so focused on leveling? It's because of Dragon Quest. Grinding in Dragon Quest was just almost this meditative thing. Like
I remember there was an interview with Yuji Horii where he said his idea was to kind of give people the sense that they were climbing a mountain, and when they get to the top, it's like, I've done it. I've completed this challenge after so much like drive. And apparently, he's like, according to him, it's just like that's not really as much of a thing in the West. So that was his suspicion as to why Dragon Quest did not really take off the way it did in
well,
Japan.
it's the nature of it's definitely changed. I mean, grinding is still
Yeah.
here, but it's arguably been turned for evil at this point. Usually so that you're grinding for in-game items so that you
Yeah.
don't end up paying for microtransactions.
Yep.
Or
Good
it's like,
times.
I don't want to grind. I'm just gonna spend $5 so I can skip it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, turned for evil, I say.
Yeah, it's kind of wild the way that that classic system has been turned into the commodification. It was so easy to graft that onto a service model, but that's why I look at stuff like, for a recent non-leveling game that I think does quote unquote levels well, Chained Echoes. I love the way
Mm.
that you power up in Chained Echoes and gain power throughout the course of that game. Throughout, like you don't have conventional leveling. You just have the things that you unlock through grimoire shards and the reward board and everything that you do. And it very smartly just says, what if we got rid of any sort of static like basic number go up, and instead it was just the more you do, the more powerful you get, and we kind of take out the middleman in the equation. I think it's a very smart game for doing that. And we've seen games even play around with the idea of what does leveling mean. So Undertale, classic example of
Yeah.
like what does level mean? How can we turn it into a metatextual thing? But I think as leveling, grinding, item gaining, do X number of missions as King Shark. I'm going to talk about Suicide Squad.
You don't say.
As that as that already has been turned into a live service thing, we see RPGs kind of start to push back on it and think about, okay, if that's going to go that way, how do we want to handle the way we do stuff? So yeah, that's been interesting to watch.
I actually want to give a shout out to Elden Ring because it has that little patch of land. I forget it, underground, and it's like full of those little
Oh,
gray
those little dudes that you could just
things,
murder
little
for so
dudes, and
many
you can just
souls.
murder. And there's a bonfire right there. So I had like my two. I did the dual blade, and I just went like a lawnmower, with torrent, and that was so much fun. And like they put that there for that specific purpose, just like, hey, do you suck at this game? I understand. Go kill 50 billion of these little Kermit the Frog dudes.
It's also very like, again, I talk about textually interesting. Like it is, I forget why, but I remember reading somewhere that there's like a lore reason why that is such like a fertile place for like gathering all of these souls or whatever they call them in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Same with like the dragon that you can just like poke to death out in Caelid, which I did
Poor
because
thing.
it's there. It's a tool. Why would I not use it? And people are like, "Oh, it's cheesing." I don't care. it
FromSoft
helped me
doesn't
just
care
get
either.
Use
on.
it. I like RPGs where you can skip levels. I like RPGs where you can actually level yourself down and make yourself weaker for more challenges, but extra rewards like the world ends with you and things like that. I think leveling systems can be very clever. And I agree with you, Eric, that leveling up in Pokemon is elementally satisfying because there's a ping, there's a ding, as they would say in World of Warcraft. And you see that little progress bar, especially when you have, say, the XP, the lucky egg in
Yes.
Pokemon, and you have some other things, and then you kill like a high level enemy, and you just watch it go.
Ooh.
It's very satisfying.
And it makes the sounds.
The ding, it goes straight to the brain with the dopamine, and for good and for bad, I think.
Octopath 2 had that as well. There was, when I was endgame grinding in Octopath 2, there was a setup you could do where you had this like one helper and you fought this one battle and you had all these boosts active, and if you did it right, you basically gained like 30 levels in one go. And watching that bar just literally just flit by that fast, it was a rush that is comparable to beating a boss in a Souls game. I'm not even joking. Like I was sitting there like, brain chemicals feel good right now. This is all right. I want to bottle this moment. I think I still have that clip on my PlayStation.
There's something very similar to that in Final Fantasy IV when Cecil climbs Mount Ordeal, so he becomes a paladin. He's level 1, and this place is full of like the undead and monsters, and it's like, oh god, they're really powerful. But now that Cecil is a paladin and he has this magic light sword, he's just slicing through all these idiot zombies and just number go up, 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 up. And by the time you get off the mountain, you're a lot more powerful than when you went up. It's really cool.
It's such an interesting idea. I know we're spending a lot of time on one question right now, but
Sorry, we'll get along.
I was watching a D&D discussion recently. I think it was between like Matt Mercer and Brennan Lee Mulligan or something like that. And they were talking about how you handle leveling in a tabletop RPG setting, because obviously there's like a narrative to follow. And so do you do leveling through like traditional experience points, or do you do it through like milestone leveling where you say like, okay, the players have cleared this important part of the story. They've done something really incredible. They should level up now. It makes sense for them to level up now. And I've been listening to some D&D podcasts because that's just what I've been doing lately. And it's been interesting to hear how different people approach that idea, because I think that is potentially really powerful. But in games, you kind of have to let go of that, right? Because some games like Pokemon, like Dragon Quest, you could outpace whatever like theorized curve you have for the players, whereas other games like we talked about, Chained Echoes, give you those levels as you do things in the world. Or even Baldur's Gate 3, you could power game to some extent, but you are going to gradually hit like certain level markers at certain points in that story. And so I think it's really interesting when a game manages to get that curve right. And no matter what, whether you are like a power player and you 100% everything, or you are just doing the bare minimum, the level curve always feels very natural and feels like you're gaining power, but never too overpowered and never too underpowered. And so that, I think, is like peak leveling, is when you are always challenged and fighting things maybe like 1 or 2 levels above you, and like feeling like you're kind of riding the red line there, but it's never overpowered, never underpowered, and then get to the end game and power game all you want.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Actually, it's almost it's a whole episode topic, honestly.
That's one for a rainy day.
But let's keep on to Zubatman's question. Per Nadia's request, what's everyone's favorite juice?
Juice?
Favorite juice.
Context is that I asked people to make their questions juicy, quote unquote. So that's my fault. I'll go ahead and say that I actually don't drink a lot of juice. My endocrinologist has forbidden it, and so I drink
Oh,
it even
no.
less now. Well, it's
Forbidden
true.
from
Yeah.
I
juice.
inspired this question and must also abstain from it. I have a doctor's
I have been
order.
banned from juice.
When I do drink it, though, I kind of like apple juice. Apple juice has a very nostalgic taste for me. Unsurprisingly, I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a kid for weird shit. And so the nurses would always be, really nice and bring me an apple juice whenever I was sad. So I still like the taste of it.
Are we talking about like pure juice, that kind of thing?
I think it could be whatever you want.
Whatever you
has
want. Like
the
if you like
labeled
Tang,
juice
there's no
applied.
shame.
I mean, I like a really good pure orange juice that I can mix into a mimosa. Or I'm actually a bit of a sucker for it's a really bitter type juice, actually, that a lot of people hate, but its name escapes me.
Are you talking about cranberry? Because I love cranberry.
Cranberry.
Juice. I
actually
love
like cranberry juice.
Cranberry is
Yeah,
good for you.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
It is
so
too better
good.
for me, though.
I feel kind of healthy drinking it, and I think that's why. So I ended up drinking it a lot when I'm sick.
Yeah.
It's good for your urinary tract. Very good.
Yes, exactly. When you're sick, do you have like a thing, like a food or a drink that you specifically go to? Because for me, it's 7-Up. When I was very young, for whatever reason, I always got 7-Up when I was sick, and so I think I've just come to associate it with being cured, even though it's effing 7-Up. I also like ginger ale when I'm sick.
Ginger ale for sure, and then my mom would also mix like a lemon lime soda, so like a 7-Up or a Sprite with orange juice to like help us like drink it, and that is surprisingly tasty. Y'all should try that at some point.
I usually, if I have a cold or something, I usually make a kind of a chicken soup out of this really kind of powerful stock. And then I put a shitload of hot sauce into it and a shitload of garlic, and I drink that. And man, that's good for not only clearing your sinuses, but it has a really comforting feel to your stomach.
We talked
We're gonna
about
need a shitload of
how
garlic.
is that comforting for your stomach? Hot sauce?
It's very warming. And I mean, it's good for your
Different, Nadia. You're
sinuses. Like
built
if
different.
it's really good if your sinuses are really packed. Just the horseradish is good for that too.
Nadia pouring like the hot one Scovilles into a chicken stock, like this will clean me right up.
It works. And yes, it's actually Zubat Man. I don't know if you're from Canada, but there's a very specific kind of soup that Lipton/Knorr makes that has these noodles that I just kind of throw out and just this cube of chicken stock, and makes a really good broth to just kind of put stuff into, especially hot sauce and garlic.
I can't believe
Ain't that right,
broth.
Toofy?
Did I tell
The
y'all I
second-
accidentally bought 3 million Scoville hot sauce?
No, 3 million?
Yes. Okay,
That's
so
a lot.
there was a product tie-in. My good friend Kate Sanchez over at But Why Though told me about it. We both bought it. It was this Godzilla -1 hot sauce, and it had like claw marks in the side for the heat rating. Okay, 2 of them side by side. So we were like, oh, that's 2, like Roman numeral 2, or like he used claws or whatever. And then we tried it, and it was the most like just. It was the worst hot sauce experience I've ever had in my life, and I had like a dash of it, like just
God
a
damn,
tiny, like,
Godzilla.
drop, and I was like regretting my life. We later learned, because we tried it again during the Super Bowl and had someone else try it, and they also suffered for hours afterwards. We looked it up online. That claw mark was actually an 11. That was a 1-1 on the heat scale, and we contacted customer support, and they told us that it was probably about a 3 million Scoville hot sauce, when like a Reaper or whatever is supposed to be like 2 million Scoville.
That sounds dangerous to have like a product attached to it. Not only is it labeled kind of confusingly, but Godzilla hot sauce can probably kill you by the sounds of it if you take a little bit too much of it. Hot sauce can screw you up.
It does close up your throat.
Yeah, that stuff was wild. So I have like nuclear hot sauce just sitting here now. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with it. So
Nuclear.
Godzilla kills child with hot sauce.
The second part of the question is, to make it actually RPG, do you prefer potions or foods as healing status items? I only go crazy when it's both in the game. where it's potions
Yeah.
and food, and
I hate
so I
that.
have all of this stuff cluttering up my actual inventory. I think pick one or the other. I do like the idea of potions heal you, but food like confers interesting buffs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Tales series, oh, sorry, not Tales, Trails is Cold Steel is very good about that. Like you cook
Tails
all
does
sorts
it
of
too,
foods.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, that you're right, it does. And not only do they restore health, but a lot of the time they give you some really great buffs as well. So it's worth it to learn how to cook, to find those recipes. I like it when a game does that.
I think the smartest way of handling it is that health or health potions fix you now in the moment. Food is like what you need to survive long term. It
Over
is the
time.
thing that sustains you. So like whether that meters your max health in some way is kind of interesting, or whether that is just you do get some sort of larger buff, but you have to prepare it in some way versus a health potion, which is just bottled healing available now. Because obviously, like most games, you also have healing on demand from a healer. So, like, what is your tiered hierarchy of healing? How does that work? And again, I go back to like Baldur's Gate, where it's like, okay, food is for long resting specifically. Like when you want to regain spell slots, fully recover, all that, that's when you go to food. Health potions are also very useful because they're healing in the moment, but they're kind of like random in how much they do, and also like stock limited. And then you have healing from spells, which is spell slot limited. And so you have kind of all these different restrictions that you have to navigate. But I think if I'm just talking flat out, I gotta pick one. Food only if it's Vanillaware food. Vanillaware food is delicious. I want to eat the Vanillaware food.
Vanillaware food is ridiculous.
Totally agreed. Also, Final Fantasy 15 food's pretty good too.
Oh, the food was so good.
Shout out.
Like a Dragon food too. I was thinking about that when I was playing Infinite
I
Wealth. I was like a Dragon has some tasty, tasty food in it.
El Pescado is wondering, with Shiren the Wanderer 6 and Unicorn Overlord releasing so close to Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, are you worried at all that they're going to slip through the cracks of RPG recognition like the supremely overlooked Octopath Traveler 2? Yes, I think that most people are not even aware that Shiren the Wanderer 6 was released. And, I mean, that should be the perfect... that should be the perfect thing for Axe the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. But
Oh, those
I
jerks.
don't know if like any of us are the super hardcore old school roguelike types.
I am not.
So
I am not a
A little
Sharon
bit.
person.
A little bit.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Eric has the sickness.
I think I got
Are
that
you
dog
playing
in
it?
me.
Are you
No,
playing
I'm
it,
not
Eric?
playing it, but it's
Okay. No, no.
there's
I think
there's
the
an aspect of me
OG,
that likes
the
them.
OG's Shiren for Super Nintendo is like pretty cool actually. But yeah, so it's a tough time to be a niche RPG
I
releasing.
think
I think.
anything by Vanillaware tends to go word of mouth. Like Vanillaware has a very long tail. I'm not
I
worried
have
about
more
Unicorn
faith in
Overlord.
Unicorn Overlord than I do Shiren the Wanderer.
Yeah, same,
I-
same.
Yeah.
We did get a request to talk about the previews that went out. Sadly, like
Yeah.
I don't
For
think any of us
Unicorn?
were able to go. But
Mm-hmm. Is it
I
good?
did get sent like a preview thing that was just like some info about that game, and they showed the battle system, and it's basically the Gambit system from FF12 souped up into strategy mode, where you are setting these like if then statements for your entire
Oh,
like
macro
unit
time.
squad to follow. And they were like, okay, so if you want your knight to attack, then you just put slice as like priority number one. But say you want them to heal, well, you got to put heal up there. It needs to be higher priority, but you don't want them to heal all the time. So you set a condition on it, like only if the target is below half
Oh.
health. So it'll do a heal if a target is below half health. Otherwise, it will slice. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, this is activating something in my brain. This is
What's happening to me? Ah!
yeah, I'm very, very excited for that game. And I do think Vanillaware is like on an upswing right now that I don't think we saw carry over into Grim Grimoire, because number one, they didn't really like push that game very hard. They were just like, we remade Grim Grimoire, check it out. But I think a lot of like residual 13 Sentinels good feelings, which also that game has had a very long tail, like a lot of word
Yeah.
of mouth for 13 Sentinels. I think that's going to carry over into Unicorn, and also Fantasy's big right now. It's a good time for fantasy RPGs and tactics stuff. The tactics sickos are back. We've been eaten so well, and so I do think that like we're gonna see not just the Vanillaware sickos show up, but also the Vanillaware sickos are a passionate bunch. We like the word of mouth. We like to spread the good word, and so I think it is going to get overshadowed by Rebirth, but anything would get overshadowed by Rebirth, like any game.
It'll come out fine. Like Unicorn Overlord, anything by Vanillaware, you cannot have a picture pass your eyes and turn your head. Like it's just Vanillaware always gets attention just by how good its games look. Oh, different too.
I do think that Unicorn Overlord will not be as successful as 13 Sentinels because 13 Sentinels was urban anime, and I think that just urban anime is very popular at the moment. Fantasy anime of the very specific, the very specific Vanillaware type with very systems forward as opposed to very story forward. I would say that 13 Sentinels wasn't as systems forward, perhaps. So if that's in that respect, maybe Unicorn Overlord will play with a more niche audience, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a good point. That like one of the main things coming out of the previews for folks like friend of the show, Michael Hyam, who had one over at GameSpot, it sounds like the story obviously is not going to be as winding and strange as 13 Sentinels, which was a big part of the appeal. But even like it seems like it is presented more like a tactics ogre battle Final Fantasy tactics story. So it's something that's a little bit more expected. Which hey, if you're a Vanillaware fan, like you know that they don't always have things that look like 13 Sentinels when it comes to story, but that was kind of like an anomaly even within the studio. But I do think it is maybe not going to be as story forward, and for people that are coming from 13 Sentinels, I think I agree with you, Kat, that like it might be a bit of a like adjustment.
Odin Sphere had a very kind of dark fairy tale aesthetic to it, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Or like Dragon's Crown had that whole, it felt like a choose your own adventure book, right?
Oh yeah, it was great. What a great game.
Dragon's Crown ruled. I don't feel like I can say that enough. And I, for one, am here for folks who, what can I say? I, for one, am here for Vanillaware to take classic games like Dungeons and Dragons Tower of Mystara and just be like, now this is our take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun.
Which is great. That's what I love about it.
There's lush visuals and a lot of boobies, so have fun.
Very many boobies.
Well, that's the wild thing about Unicorn is that it feels like their take on Ogre Battle, basically.
Yeah,
like the
we're just doing Ogre Battle, but it's gorgeous. Have fun. Sorry, let's see. Well, here we go. Charbundle wonders, what are y'all's thoughts on the Nintendo Direct rumor cycle? Have any of you slept or gone to the bathroom yet? Should rumors be taken as seriously as they are?
Eric
the rumor is that the Nintendo Direct was delayed.
My eyes are watering over here.
Huh?
My eyes are watering over here. Nintendo, please let me go.
You okay?
No, I'm kidding.
You okay over there, Eric?
We'll get through it once Nintendo announces.
Yeah, as I've already said, I'm just not really expecting all that much from this Nintendo Direct. It is such an end of life kind of situation with this system. So
I think it's wild that like we only have rumors about the Switch 2, and then everyone's like, "Oh, the Switch 2 is delayed," and everyone's in dismay. And it's like, dude, this thing doesn't exist yet.
Hasn't even been announced yet.
Let it be announced, then we can have the dismay.
So I mean, look, reporting is not an exact science, right? It's something
really
that I think if you've done reporting before, you know that like you're trying to hit a moving target, you're trying to assess things, you're trying to like figure out what's going on while not just like walking up to the people that like 100% know what's going on. It's like a constant moving target that you are trying to like land an arrow on. And so to some degree, I understand why a lot of the Switch reporting, the Super Switch, Switch 2, whatever you want to call it, has
Super
been...
Switch, yes.
Yeah. I mean, even Switch Pro reporting from like years ago, which the Switch Pro never really came to light, and then it just turned out to be like Switch OLED was probably what a lot of people were hearing about. But the whole thing was, it, you know that everyone is eager for a new Switch, and I think that is like the thing that sticks out to me right now is that there is an obvious hunger in the market for a new Switch, even though the Switch is still selling pretty well. It
Yeah.
could potentially pass the PS2. I think it's still lagging behind the PS2 at overall sales, but it's it's more like we're going into a year where this would have been the right time for a new Switch to like really revitalize the market, to revitalize the industry, to get some people to maybe spend some money where money is not being spent. And there's been a lot of talk around DICE, around just the layoffs that have happened this last year of everyone like tightening their purse strings, not wanting to spend money, like being very wary of what the year ahead looks like. I have heard so many different people say that like we just got to get through 2024, and I'm like, this is already the outlook and we're like 2 months in. Oh god.
Yeah.
Survive 24.
Yeah, it is. Like, I've heard so many people say to effect like we have to survive 2024, and I think there were some hopes that a big Nintendo showing could revitalize the industry in that way, and now that the winds are starting to go the opposite direction. Oh, that's a bummer. That was
Okay.
Oh,
So we're already out. So I guess we're just on the Switch 2 delay discourse now.
yeah.
Boy, if Switch 2's delayed, what a grim year
Yeah.
for releases at this
That's
point.
pretty sad.
At this point, we just sort of have to hope for like cool surprises. Like we might get it. Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age is probably coming out this year.
God willing.
Assassin's Creed.
God willing. Yeah,
I mean,
we might get it
stuff
might be
could
a good
blow up.
year for like smaller stuff, like in surprises, as you say, Kat.
I mean, it already
Hades
has
2 has
been.
got to come out sometime.
Hades 2 will probably go out in early access. Helldivers 2 has been actually a lot bigger than I ever expected. I think everybody's just really desperate for something to play at the moment. And Pal World, honestly, like it has settled down quite a bit, but it's still very popular with the younger sets. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those years in which you're looking at Steam charts and stuff and going, okay, well, what's popping off right now? As for the Switch 2 in 2025, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the original Switch, right? It came out in March 2017, thereabouts. So, wow, that would have been 8 years. Can you believe the Switch has lasted 8 years?
I'm quite impressed. That's a really good lifespan for a console of its make.
I mean, I
That's
feel like
rough for Nintendo, though. Like another holiday with Nintendo, like last year really needed to be the last year for the Switch in terms of the holiday releases. There's not going to be anything on the Switch this year.
We don't know that yet.
maybe a
Who knows?
Pokemon. I feel like they might kick a Pokemon out the door. Not like a new Pokemon, not like a Pokemon Scar vibe, but like something Pokemon related. I think would get.
I would
kicked out
actually
around
play a
holiday.
Let's Go based on Johto region.
That's like the rumor. Rumor. Like
Let's
grain
go,
of salt.
though.
I loved Let's Go. It was a very single player experience, and that's why I liked it. I like single player Pokemon.
But
Uh,
to your point, Kat, like, yeah, there was also the story going around that like Sony is not putting out any major first party games until like March 2020 or through March 2025, basically like fiscal year type stuff. And it just does kind of paint a stark picture of what big releases look like for the rest of the year. And
Yeah.
I'm on here talking all the time about like the weirdest small games that you've not heard of, but like it does make the industry at large feel a bit more tenuous because we've already had a lot of layoffs, a lot of people tightening purse strings, a lot of just what do we do when sales just don't seem to be up across the board. And we're kind of trying to figure out what we do when there aren't a lot of video games coming out, and that's from publishers to developers to journalists to even players. Like, what do you play when nothing big is coming out? And so that's why we see room for Helldivers 2 to take off, I think. But it's a weird year. It's already been a very strange year. Pal World set us up for just weird vibes.
Yeah.
in the meantime, 2025 looks ridiculous. Like completely, truly absurd. the number of games that could be coming out. Just starting with GTA 6 and the Switch 2
Yeah.
alone, and rolling on from there, and then whatever Sony has.
Death Stranding 2.
I mean, who doesn't want to play Death Stranding 2? I'm still of the opinion that GTA 6 is going to get pushed into 2026, but we shall see, right? Okay. Pash says, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth contains some juicy minigames. How do you, in general, feel about minigames in RPGs? And what are some of your favorite minigames in RPGs? Returning to Pokemon, I love additive minigames like the contest. The thing that I love about the contest is that it's a different take on Pokemon, but it uses a lot of the same mechanics, and it feels all bound together.
Yeah.
In a game like Final Fantasy VII, the minigames are very simple and silly, but they add a lot of flavor and texture to the actual game. Same with Infinite Wealth is actually kind of ridiculous how much they cram into Infinite Wealth with those minigames. Like, even Crazy Delivery, I'm like, this is borderline a game that I would play just regardless outside of Infinite Wealth. So, what are your thoughts on mini games?
I love them as long as you don't make me win one for the sake of the story. Like, if I have like a tiny bar to clear, like, oh yeah, you swung your sword, okay, cool, move on, or something, just even if I lose, I move on with the story. That's fine. But I hate being forced to play them. But if they're on the side, I will absolutely play them. Like FF7's motorcycle game, I just played that like constantly in the Gold Saucer and the snowboarding game as well. I'm cool with mini games.
Yeah, when I think of like my favorite mini games, they are the more involved ones. So like Gwent is a go-to of like that. Gwent kind of like seeps into everything, right? And I feel like we've seen a lot of video games respond to how popular Gwent was, where oh shoot, I'm suddenly forgetting what game it was. It was Horizon Forbidden West had like a weird board game mini game. Sea of Stars had a like board game mini game.
That was great.
FF7 Rebirth has been talking about some sort of card game they're gonna have in that game. I forget what the name of it is, but
Queen's Blood.
It's but the whole idea of having this like consistent thing that you are doing throughout the game, that you're kind of building up like a deck or just something that evolves that you play a mini game with, can feel like a mini RPG within the RPG. And I think cards are especially very useful for that, because that's a very tangible reward you can get from things outside the game. So you do a sick thing in Witcher 3 and they're like, good job, you get a Gwent card, and you're like, yeah. Now I can put that in my Gwent deck and go fight that nerd down the street.
What do you think of locking like jobs and meaningful content behind the mini games?
Depends, because I do think that's a really fun reward to like unlock a secret class or something if you do that sort of stuff. But also, if it's too arduous to do, that feels kind of annoying to me. It really just depends on whether the mini game is fun to play or not, I guess. Because if a mini game was hidden behind, so like Infinite Wealth is a great example. There's a class that you only get once you get a certain way into the Sujimon story in Infinite Wealth. Which
is it the Sujimon character?
Sujimancer or something like that.
Sujimancer?
Which I never got it because I wasn't that into Sujimon when I was playing, and from people who did get it, I heard it was not that good of a class. So it's not really that big a deal, but I'm cool with that because I'm like, oh, I could see myself playing enough Sujimon to get there. But if they hit a class behind that Tinder minigame that you played that I thought was just like abysmally unfun, then I would probably feel a certain way about it. So it really just depends.
The Tinder game is just fun, just funny. Like, it's just there for the lulz.
It's funny, but I don't think this feels so weird to say, but I had to guide out the cabaret game that was in Gaiden, the game that came before it. And that was basically like a Tokimeki Memorial almost, where you sit down with this like FMV girl and you just make responses, and you have like a good option, a great option, and then like a bad option, and that gives you like romance up, romance down. I was like, that's fine. But the Tinder one in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth was so over designed, where it was like you have to have a profile that matches up with this person, then you have to like pick an answer to respond with, but the longer answers make you do a longer QTE to punch it in, and then you got to remember what you said on your Tinder profile. And I was like, this is over designed. You needed to stop like 5 steps ago, and it doesn't need to be that deep. And I do think that is, to loop it back around, it's really easy to over design these things and make them a bigger deal than they need to be. And I like a mini game that is very simple, has like a really good idea, presents it, maybe gives you like a bit of a challenge, and then moves on. Fort Condor in Intergrade was such a good mini game because I think you got just enough of that game. Like they did not overdo it, they did not underdo it. They presented, I think, as much Fort Condor as made sense for that slice of DLC, and it was good and it was solid.
Yeah, I started playing the Sujimon game in Infinite Wealth, and I've actually been enjoying it. First of all, it's funny. It's surprisingly deep. There's like raids that you can go do and everything to get better Sujimon. There's a lot of ways to level them up. The gym leaders that you're fighting in them are like just complete dirtbags. And as a send-up of Pokemon, it's A, it has great rewards, and B, it's just... Actually, I like it better than Pokemon itself these days. And it made me realize that I'm just like, it's just fun to level up your Pokemon and go on a journey and fight in gyms and such. And somehow Sujimon gets to the core of it in a way that like Scarlet and Violet somehow lost. It's weird. But what were you going to say, Nadia?
Oh, just going to Gold Saucer and FF14, like it has a really good mix of like more intensive mini games, like the Chocobo breeding and racing. I like doing that, and just like these games where you, I can't remember the name of it's like a traditional game you find on computers in Japan, where you're trying to chop a tree and you have to strike the exact point to get the. Yeah. It's just a very very satisfying Twitch game that I play. And there's another one called Kufakur, which I play when I'm waiting for my Chocobo to line up for racing. And it's just like stopping the meter on a very specific point. Stuff like that. Give me a good mix.
I like that there are people who play FF14 just to play Mahjong. Like, that's great.
I couldn't figure it out. I tried. And of course, Triple Triad. Like, there's tournaments and stuff.
Oh.
I would play FF14 just for the Stardew Valley game or whatever, where you're building up your house.
That's not nearly as intensive as Stardew Valley, but I do have my island and I love it.
I need to get back to that.
Milk asks, I have been listening to older episodes and it sparked a question a while ago.
Oh dear.
What are some games or game types that awaken the Sicko Mode in each of you? Sicko Mode. For me, any game that has an extremely large roster of compelling and well-designed characters, whether they're monsters or human beings, your Suikoden 2s, for example, your Pokemons, which then will make, and especially if it has some kind of team combination dynamic where like I'm building a party of 6 and there's like different like versions of that party, and it's like, okay, you can go in this direction or that direction, what's the meta. Like I will sit there and sweat for hours over team composition in an RPG. So any game with an extremely large cast, it makes me think of the ProZD skit where he's like games with large characters, and it's like there's the one character who has a story moment, but then there's another one that has a nunchuck with a sword on it. It's like, oh, right.
I saw that, and I'm like,
that guy.
Will from Baldur's Gate 3.
Why do you need 2 of them? They're the same character. I don't know. They look cool. But I just want to have them on. I just want to have a mix of. But then I'm like very specific about the way I build the party because I'm not min-maxing. I'm going for the characters that I think are the coolest.
That's how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. The characters I like most, and then I will make them work. So then that's an extra layer. So you can already hear the Sicko Mode, like just going completely opening up right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
As for me, if you give me like a nice kind of open world or zone and a horse, I'm gone. you won't see me
A
again.
horse is the
A
Sicko
horse.
There's a
activation.
horse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's
Horse
a
is the
horse in
best.
the open world.
A horse, of course. I like horses best, but any kind of mount, especially a flying mount. Although I don't like starting with a flying mount. Build me up to a flying mount. But yeah, I just like big open worlds that I'm free to explore. That's why Tears of the Kingdom was pure catnip for me. I was just gone for 300 hours of my life. I never came up for food or water.
I think there is like a tangible point in my life that I can trace to where like my current video game tastes formed. And it was a video game called Dungeon Encounters. I did not expect that game to like radically alter my brain chemistry in the way it did, but it really did because it boiled so much down to just the bare bones of what a dungeon crawling RPG can be, and then said like engage with that as like the raw mechanics. You're going to play what feels like a prototype of a game, but it's incredibly deep, impossibly deep, and it's going to play with mechanics in very interesting ways, but do it in like a way that's not going to like mask a lot of the stuff. Like I love that game is so you're moving around on boxes, right? Like literal grid paper basically, and the battle screens are just character portraits shooting things at each other, and it's so bare bones, but it forced me to sit there and go like, okay, what am I doing? Is it working? Is it effective for me? Like just strip away all the production and stuff, and like what's a good dungeon crawling experience? What's a good party-based RPG without story, without like, you know, narrative attachment to these characters? What makes these characters compelling? And I think that just awakened something in me where I was like, I understand the dungeon crawl. I understand the need to dive into the dungeon. There was an episode of Free Run recently. I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen the screen caps going around of Himmel the hero was saying something like, well, you have to explore the entire floor of a dungeon before you go down to the next one. Like, what are we doing here? Come on now. And I was like, yes, Himmel the hero.
I understand that. Yeah.
But that game like activated a sicko gear in me that I didn't think I knew I had. And it's that's like one part of the sicko triumvirate. It's like that, and then like Disco Elysium awakened a different sicko mode in me where I was like, I want narrative tied into dice so bad, and I love the like voices talking to each other. That was like a real sicko mode. And then Tactics Ogre Reborn was like the third point of that, where I was like, this is so crunchy and so detailed, and all these units are so interesting, and I can grow them in interesting ways, and they are all doing dark fantasy type stuff, and that's like the sicko triumvirate for me.
I learned a new word. Thank you.
Sicko triumvirate?
Yeah.
Old Blue says, Nadia horse girl confirmed. I am absolutely a horse girl stuck in a city. If you grow up in Toronto, you are not seeing a bloody damn horse unless you are a millionaire who lives on the bridle path. And then you have like a stable in Sunnybrook Park or somewhere. But a horse was the furthest thing from my reach when I was a child. Like even the Nintendo was like in heaven, and horses were like somewhere in outer space. It was not happening. Can't even work with horses because God, those millionaires are not letting you get near their horses unless you know what you're doing. So yeah, I suffered.
The Nintendo was in heaven, and the horses were in outer space. Nadia Oxford. Spooky Man BR wants to know what our favorite Pantheon episode is. I've been kind of like noodling on this one. The funny thing about doing all these Pantheon episodes, I'm really proud of every one of them. Actually,
yeah, they're pretty
whenever
good.
They come out. There's a couple of exceptions, a couple of small exceptions of ones that came out. We're like, that was just okay. But for the most part, we usually get like a really great panel of super passionate experts.
We do.
On each show, who, like, they start out and they're like, yeah, like this is great. And by the end, everybody's just in full swing, like vibing over the game, talking about all of its different aspects, and invariably you just come out kind of buzzing and you're like, wow, what a great game. You know, it's very rare that you come out going, the game was kind of mid, you know.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed doing the Xenogears episode because we got like 3 really good panelists.
We got Parrish on that, right?
I don't think we had Parrish. We had the Resident Arc people on there,
right,
among others. 3 really passionate people who really knew their stuff
Yeah.
around Xenogears, and I think we just had a terrific conversation that really dug into that game in a way that maybe it deserved. And I definitely encourage you to go back and listen to one. I also enjoyed the Persona 5 episode with Hayam.
Oh, Hyam's the greatest for anything
I
Persona.
know.
He's your
Yeah,
dude.
that one's available to everybody right now. So that was a good one as well. I think we've done a lot to refine the format over time. We usually end up coming in at a tight 2 hours around these
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
but we dig into a lot of virtually every aspect of it in the course of those 2 hours. And I'm always really pleased when people come out going, "Wow, what an episode! That was awesome!" and everything.
Yeah.
Nadia, do you have one that really stands out to you as a favorite?
Really sorry the two of you missed my Dragon Quest Builders 3, where we had John Cartwright
I didn't
and
miss
Brandon
that. I was on
Jones.
that.
I'm
I
sorry,
was
Eric. You were.
there.
I'm sorry.
And it was also
You were
Dragon
there.
Quest Builders 2. So
What did I call it? Dragon Quest Builders 3?
Yes.
I wish. I think Square's building up to something, by the way, so to speak. But anyway, Dragon Quest Builders 2, it was the
year.
best sounding episode. We had some really sexy voices on
yeah,
that one.
Yeah.
And that was just like, we just sat there and talked about the game for like 2 hours, and it was great to just have different guests because,
It's a lot of fun.
yeah. And, yeah, I just noticed that there's a lot of Dragon Quest Builders activity going on Square's social media, and I think Builders 2
Did
just
we
came
just
to Game
speak
Pass.
it into existence?
I hope so. I'll be
Finally.
honest.
Did we do the thing?
I shared the episode with them. I'll just admit it right now. Like, I gave it to my contacts in Square and said, like,
Here you go. Here you go. Yeah.
and they enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed the Symphony of the Night episode.
That was a great one.
That one was like, it was a Shivam and Anthony Agnello, and it got really goofy. And John Learned.
John Learned
ended
it.
up
He knows
being-
everything.
Which ended up
About
being the
Symphony.
perfect trio of just complete silliness and bad New York accents.
Oh,
But also a lot of like actual discussion around the game itself and everything. Gotta go listen to that one. I think that's an all-timer right there.
That was
It's a
great.
Symphony of the
That was
Night
fun.
episode.
Was Lunar the Shadow Madness one? Because that's
I think so.
Oh,
real
yeah.
up there for me in terms of just a fun episode. That was a really fun episode to record. And then I also liked our Link to the Past episode. I thought that was it like
It's a good one,
analyzing
yeah.
that game was really cool to finally confront like, is Zelda an RPG in long form, and like really dig into it and talk about specifically the way that Link to the Past related to RPGs of that time and played as like a foundational work within the genre. And that was just a really interesting episode to like dissect, because I think that was one we went into. Sometimes it's interesting when we go in and we're all like, this game is getting in. Like, this game, or to be clear, this game is clearly an amazing video game, like inarguably an incredible video game. So like, let's really talk about what it is and what it does and dig into it. And I think it was a really cool episode for that, because we all kind of went in going, yeah, we all know this game is good, but why is it good? Let's like really interrogate why it's interesting and why it's effective and why it stands the test of time.
Java Chip 730 wants to know, finally, what's something that's been keeping you happy the past few months?
You tell me.
Outside of video games, I've been reading a lot more, and I've picked up skiing again. I'm gonna go like on a big skiing trip in March that I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's cool. Where are you
And-
skiing?
I'm going to be on the East Coast, so like New Hampshire, and like Jace Peak maybe in Vermont, and then also a place in New Hampshire. So it's a little bit
that's
of an
awesome.
East Coast swing post PAX East. So it should be pretty fun, I think, actually.
My brothers are avid snowboarders.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially my nephew is kind of insane, just snowboarding way above his age level and going to competitions and stuff. He's
heck yeah.
he's going for it.
I was skiing. I think I mentioned on this show. I skied when I was in middle school, so this for me
Aw.
is getting back to my roots a little bit.
That's nice.
And rediscovering something that I really enjoy, and hoping fervently that I don't tear my ACL. In the
Yeah.
process. So pray for my knees. How about you, Nadia?
I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VI, the remake on the Pixel Remaster on Switch. I find that's pretty relaxing. It's just been a nice game to go back to recently, with everything being as screwy as it is. Um, I've also been watching a lot of Call the Midwife. I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I just really think it's a nice, warm show that's not like overly saccharine, and just a really life affirming kind of show, I suppose. And yeah, just keeping up with those as I trundle along in 2023. But I'm hanging in there, hanging in there.
Trundle, 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 trundle.
Trundle, trundle, trundle. That's a sound effect.
Yeah, if you can't tell from my ever-changing backdrop, I have been reading a lot of manga recently. It's been like a new just thing that I've discovered because I never really read it for the longest time, and then obviously I got way into Chainsaw Man, which got me way into the works of Tatsuki Fujimoto, which got me way into extraneous works, so stuff that he had recommended or that his assistants had worked on, so Dandadan and stuff like that. And now I'm deep into Dungeon Meshi. I've been reading this one called Blue Period that I think is absolutely incredible, and it's just like it's when you get the joy of like discovering an art form that you had never really like dove into in the past, and now you're just like, there's so much here and there's so much to find and uncover. It's been really, really rewarding. And then also I've been writing, like fiction writing.
Yeah, same.
I've been trying to set aside some time every week to just write for me. And I think that is something that I have needed to do for a long time, because writing has always been I did it when I was a kid. I actually wrote fiction when I was a kid, like 6 years old. And I would do it up through like middle school, and then I kind of stopped once I got to like high school, because I was in that era of like, oh, I gotta be cool. And,
Yeah.
it's something that I had dropped for a long time, and then obviously writing became my work, and now I am trying to like get back to that part of me that does really enjoy it and find that spark that I had a long time ago. And I've been writing some stuff that I don't think is good, but it has been interesting to like flex that part of my brain again and see what's changed, what hasn't, and like apply what I've learned and just do something for me in this realm that I've been doing it for work for so long. Why not try doing it for me? And so that's been really exciting, and I don't know if I'll ever put any of that out there or anything like that, but I have been really, really enjoying it. And it's been spurred on by all this manga and stuff like that, like seeing other people kind of create and do things and surprise me in ways makes me want to like find that in myself. So a lot of things that are very creatively fulfilling for me have been like kind of sparking joy, I guess.
I actually recommend that all writers, whether you do, especially if you do it for a job, take time to write fan fiction if you want to write it. Like, that's something I've really been getting back to. You can find a lot of what I wrote on AO3. Not all of it is explicit, but some of it is, so beware. But I do just have, like, God, I wrote a whole, like, fan fiction, 20,000 words about Kane fucking Highwind and his childhood. And, I mean, that's perfectly all ages. Go ahead and grab that if you want. But, yeah, it's just writing it. I was like, wow, okay, so I'm kind of proud of the fact that I finished this. And it's something that it's a cohesive story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I did something, and that made me feel really good. And as someone who has been writing for her life literally writing for her life, like, to live, it was just nice to write what I wanted to write, like the story in my head and not someone else's words.
Yeah, one of my fiction projects right now is a Baldur's Gate 3 fanfic. And
Do it, man.
It's not, I like it. It's fun to write. So, yeah.
Hey, that's a little inspiration for me, honestly, because I would like to write more. But
You should.
But I'm very tired all the time.
That's the hard part.
I'm always surprised. I'm always like, I'm really tired. I don't know if I want to do this. And I go to the coffee shop. I sit down with my tablet and I just write for like 2 hours. And I'm like, that was actually energizing for me. I feel better afterwards. And I'm like forcing
Was it the
myself.
caffeine?
A little bit, but three
It helps.
Be the
espresso
caffeine.
shots, they work. But it's also like just getting to the point where it's hard to get started, but then once I'm like rolling, I have to stop myself from being like, I'm only writing a certain number of words every time I go. And so I have to like stop myself and be like, okay, I'm not going to like push myself today, even though I want to keep going. I want to keep writing more.
On that note, actually, the podcast is one thing that's been keeping me happy over the last few months because
Same.
it's a creative project that the three of us and plus Victor all get some control over, and we're doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it to create value for any shareholders or anything like that. I think
Yeah.
that's
Refreshing.
extremely rewarding, and also like I guess as I was telling Amy the other day, like yeah, like I have to do some work to get the podcast ready to go every morning or every Saturday morning, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like I'm sitting here for 2 hours vibing with my friends about video games. I mean, it's fun, you know? All right. That's it for the mailbag. Had a great time with that. Thanks for all the great questions. We enjoy doing them. We'll probably do one like quarterly or something like that. There was like a lot of really great
We
questions.
get a lot of questions, and they're all good.
It's hard to get to all of them, but maybe we'll save some more for a rainy day, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Time now for a series of random encounters. Baldur's Gate 3's Big Smooch update is live, and if you were paying attention to the Baldur's Gate 3 community on February 14th, it was pretty funny as they tried to manifest it on that day, but it did ultimately come out yesterday. It's out there. It's patch 6. It's a big one, so go check it out. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is getting visual upgrades before launch. It's going into the demo, and it'll go into the final game as well. Disco Elysium's standalone expansion has been canceled among layoffs of up to a quarter of the staff, and Zaum has been in a bad way for quite a while now, and I think that's one of the more depressing stories in gaming right now. The PS5 latter stages of its life cycle, according to Sony, and no major franchises this year. That's a tough one for PlayStation. And finally, Suikoden creator Yoshitaka Murayama has died. Yoshitaka Murayama, of course, is known for the Suikoden series. He joined Konami in 1992, intending to be a programmer, but he was a writer. He worked on Suikoden. He worked on Suikoden 2, and then he departed from Konami in the midst of the development of Suikoden 3. The Suikoden series, of course, some of the best loved games of all time. Amazing writing. He founded Rabbit and Bear, and he was working on Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, a spiritual successor to Suikoden, and sadly, he passed away before Eiyuden Chronicle could be released. The news was broken on the Kickstarter. He was apparently battling a long illness. Huge loss for the RPG community. Nadia, do you have any words before we move on?
It is absolutely a huge loss. Like, we're talking about an absolute legend. Suikoden, what might be known as like some of the earliest RPGs that had actual like grown-up writing, even if the translation didn't do the game's justice. Suikoden 2 still has one of the most intriguing plots in a video game, and just the way that the text is staged with some of the fights, even just the encounter, the fight with Luca Blight, the way it's written, the way they talk, the way it's like staged, just fantastic writer. Huge loss. It's like losing Iwata all over again, to be honest.
Yeah, he seemed like a really joyful guy. Really enjoyed games. I enjoyed his updates around Eiyuden Chronicle, and
I'm sad he couldn't see it.
Yeah, it's legit heartbreaking that he couldn't
really
see it be released and see the reaction to it. I think there was a lot of heartbreak over the years because I think he had an entire arc, like an entire cycle set up around the Suikoden series that people always kind of wanted to see. And as we all know, Suikoden 4 was kind of a letdown. Suikoden 5 was a bit better, but Suikoden tailed off. Konami kind of killed it. You know, we were on the cusp of something new with Eiyuden Chronicles. So the loss of Murayama, very, very disappointing, very sad. Rest in peace. Eric, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played a ton of Suikoden. I, got into Suikoden 2 a little bit, but really could already see the ways in which that game was just different from a lot of other RPGs of the time. But, to see a creator, someone who's had so much influence and effect on the industry, I mean, the way that people are talking about him, the way that people are honoring him now just speaks volumes to the work that he did. And it is, really sobering, I guess, to see that he doesn't get to see that take off, but he did get to finish his work according
Yeah.
to the studio and all that. He did get to finish what he did on that project, and so I would just hope that whatever comes out can really, like, cement his legacy and make his influence felt throughout the industry. Because it's you lose a creator, you lose a developer, you also lose just like a person. And it seems like from the way that people have been talking about him and honoring him online that he was also just a really incredible person. And yeah.
Okay. The other big piece of news that happened this week, we already talked about the Switch 2 in Q1 of 2025, potentially earlier this week. But Xbox business update, that happened this week. And there was a bunch of news that came out of it. Some of it kind of meh certainly in terms of RPG fans, but
Yeah.
the high level ones. Xbox is bringing 4 games to other platforms. They look to be Grounded, Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush. We also, this is one for RPG fans, Diablo 4 on Xbox Game Pass
All right.
on March 28th, and that should give it kind of a much needed shot in the arm, I think, because it definitely tailed off over the past several months or thereabouts. And Sarah Bond claimed that Xbox is indeed making next-gen hardware and said that it was going to be, what was it, the biggest technical leap in a hardware generation?
Because that's what we need. That's what video game consoles need. The Switch has dominated everything with stick figures. But no, let's make a super duper computer because that's what people want.
Well, there's speculation that it would be AI-driven in some way.
Oh, that's even better.
DLSS, yeah. I mean, to be clear that like Microsoft is pushing AI in a lot of ways right now, but theoretically, I have to be very clear about this. The alleged ways in which it could push the envelope forward would be DLSS to do sort of like upscaling and things like that, which DLSS does seem to be a really interesting tool for making hardware do more than it theoretically should be able to. Which I think is overall a good thing, because we can't just keep cramming better and better video cards into things. Like, start talking about power draw and stuff like that. There's a reason the Steam Deck can only handle so much battery and all that. So if we want to manage that, then like DLSS might be an answer. Could be something interesting to explore. So I do find that compelling, but like also they're gonna say that they're gonna come out there and say like it was an Xbox podcast. It was, it was kind of framed as like a sit down chat, almost like a like panel at a tech conference or something like that. But it was very much like Xbox doing its big, this is what our business vision is for the next like 4 years type thing. And so of course they're going to come out and say like we're going to do the most powerful thing we can, because that's what the gamers want to hear. But like I'm more interested in, there was like an interview that came out on The Verge afterwards where they were obviously poking about the idea of Xbox examining the handheld market. And I think I'm more curious about that, and also more curious about what this means for where Xbox is planning to go in the next 4 to 5 years. Because my big brain theory around all of this, pure speculation, is that if Xbox starts putting games on other platforms, could it start to then look to push for platform? Because that's the big thing at the end of the day. That's what Epic and Apple and Google all fought over, was like who controls the platform, who can put a storefront on a platform, and is that going to become the next front in the war, so to speak? And this could be Xbox looking to just sort of test the waters a little bit. Or it could just be them being like, look, we've made the money that we can make off of Pentiment on the platforms that it's on right now. Why don't we just put Pentiment on other platforms where it can make us theoretically more money, because we're not like squeezing more out of this like orange right now. So I think it's a little column A, a little column B, but also it was very overblown, like everyone running around like SpongeBob on fire. And like it's not that, like they're just like, look, everyone who has bought Hi-Fi Rush on the platforms it is available on has bought Hi-Fi Rush on the platforms it is available on. We're not making more money out of it right now, but we could make, I don't know, enough money that we don't really care that PlayStation gets like a platform cut of it. So we'll just put it on that and get what cash we can, because that just makes sense at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I had extended thoughts on this over on IGN's podcast Unlocked, so go check that out. But I agree with pretty much everything that Eric said on this
Yeah.
one. I think it was a very strategically calculated um, update intended to basically take the temperature down around the Xbox and everything. And I think it is more evidence to me that everybody is just trying to figure out what's going to work, what to do next in a very chaotic and uncertain games industry. Survive 24, as they say. But okay, rolling into the tavern now. Settle in next to the fire. And let's start with you, Eric. What you been up to? What you been playing? What you been watching? What's of interest to you?
Besides, the regular statement of playing a thing I can't talk about.
Same. Yeah, same.
Yeah. But I did last night attempt to play Helldivers 2.
Did you have fun?
So I really like Helldivers 1. I probably put about like 60 or so hours into that first Helldivers because
Really?
I have an IRL friend group that I've known since we were all like 4 years old. And so every once in a while we'll get together for like co-op nights and stuff like that. And Helldivers 1 kind of became a regular one for us because it was the one we could all agree on. Like they don't like playing fighting games. Shooters are kind of up in the air. We do like Halo. I actually still play a lot of Halo because of that. But they're not into like Valorant and things like that. So it's a little bit of a harder sell there. But we found that Helldivers was a pretty agreeable idea because it was co-op and we could all kind of have fun. It's a very like fun, interesting, goofy game. And so to see people finally like latch onto these really cool ideas that Helldivers has, because it is a very interesting game and has a lot of neat ideas. I'm glad that people are finally experiencing that. What I played of Helldivers 2 was fantastic. I loved it. It was everything that I enjoyed about Helldivers 1, but like the shift in camera I was a little worried about because the first one was kind of an isometric angle. It was a top-down shooter basically. This one is a third-person shooter, and I was worried that, maybe that's going to just kind of change everything. It does, for the better, because oh my god, it's terrifying to land on a planet and just be surrounded by bugs and to just be like running for your life. And I did this move where a bug was trying to like grab me, and so I just like dove forward and like landed on my shoulder with my gun out like that and just like popped it. And I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. And there's so many cool moments like that, and it leans so hard into that Starship Troopers vibe of like, I was in the training area, and it was like, welcome to the live fire area, and this like previously pristine training ground all of a sudden had blood all over it, and I was like, oh, this is environmental storytelling. But it's really fun. It's really goofy. I love the stratagems, being able to like pop it open, and you have to play like DDR basically to punch in. So you want to do like an orbital strike from your star carrier to like hit the bugs that you're trying to take out. You have to like pop open your stratagem menu and then say like up, right, and then lock it in and then throw it, and that beacon will be where the orbital strike hits. And you have to do the same for other stuff. So if you want to call in better weapons, or you want to like reinforce and bring more Helldivers in to help you out, you have to punch them all in. And you're doing this while like robots or bugs are attacking you, so you're just like pulling this thing out and be like up, down, left, right, right, up, down, and then like throwing it and being like, oh, I hope that works. And, it's so frantic and chaotic and exciting, and I really like it. I also think the larger, broader community stuff around it is really cool because they do these things where they're like, the robots are pressing into our territory. You need to defend missions to help the effort. And like the story, quote unquote, of the game will change as like the community either succeeds or fails in that. And they did that with Helldivers 1 as well, as it was really compelling. So you would have these moments of like, oh, this faction is making an incursion into our space and we need to push them back, or we're on the offensive and we're like pushing into their home territory, so we need to do like these missions to knock that out, and the community needs to work together and rally around this, and it makes for really compelling like community storytelling. All that said, the servers are a shit show. Like it is, it's rough, and I really feel for Arrowhead. Like this is a team that I don't think expected the popularity that it got, and I would even say that like Sony needs to really like help them out here because this is a Sony published game, and so
Oh.
and this is like a big swing for Sony, and they need to be backing their studio up a little bit here. But I really feel for them because so many people are jumping on and playing it. But I got on last night. I must have played like 4 or 5 missions. I never got any experience. I never enabled some of the like ability to unlock certain stuff because it was like, you haven't finished your first mission yet. And I was like, I've done like 5 missions at this point, but it was like,
Yeah.
our server doesn't think you have, so sorry. And this is supposed to be like a 50% bonus XP weekend because they're
Oh.
making up for issues that they have had like in the last few days, and now they're having even more issues because more people are flooding on, myself included. I'm part of the problem. But like it's this thing where I'm like, I think this game is really, really good, and I'm really worried that server issues are going to cause a lot of people to drop it and walk
Yeah.
away when like I think it should get its flowers. People should be playing this and be really excited about it. Because like, look, Pal World, we talked about it. I was like, it's probably a flash in the pan. It's starting to feel like it was a flash in the pan. It was the thing that everybody played for like a couple weeks and thought was fun, but honestly, at the end of the day, is it really like a robust game that you want to spend months in? Probably not.
I think
kinda-
kids are going to keep playing it. I do.
I know. I looked at the Google trends, and it's just like a real sharp drop, real fast. So
It is, but it's the kind of game like you're seeing people already starting to build things that are really ambitious with it, like cities and everything. Like they'll have a community. And the big question is, it needs support. Is the problem?
right.
Yes.
So yeah.
And so
And then,
like Helldivers, I think could be a long running game with that community stuff they have built in, and it's a really fun co-op shooter in an era where like we don't have a ton of those right now. A lot of the popular shooters are PvP in some way. Like the best PvE option I think we've had prior to this was probably was it Back for Blood, the Left 4 Dead knockoff,
which
or
was
not
bad,
knockoff,
and
it
it's
was Turtle
also
Rock.
dead now.
Yeah, and I liked I enjoyed Back for Blood. I thought it had some cool ideas, but it didn't get the numbers that it probably should have, and it struggled. And there have been people who have been going back to games like Evolve. Evolve has like a pop-up community around it that I think is really fascinating. I would love to investigate someday. Like
Evolve was like fun, but it had a lot of problems. But I loved the idea of it.
But like Helldivers 2, I think, is something that could be this really, really impressive, long-standing game, but it really needs to figure the server problem out, or I don't know if enough people are going to stick around to keep it like big in the meantime. And I don't want that to be like the footnote on this game was like, I wish I could have played it, but the servers suck, so I hope they get that solved sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think I might end up playing it. I was talking about playing it with DJ Bagel Pup and a couple of people from the server, so we shall see. It would be fun to pick up with all of the time that I have for myself. I have been on the road for the past week, but so I haven't really had an opportunity to play that much games. I've been playing Infinite Well still on and off. I've been playing Stardew Valley. But one of the shows that I've been watching, I picked up Yellow Jackets for the first time. Eric, did you watch that one?
I've seen the first season and parts of the second. I really like the first season. I fell off on the second season.
I'm in the midst of the first season right now. I think I've watched the first 3 episodes so far. And my power ranking of characters is definitely Misty 1A, Natalie 1B,
Natalie's great.
and then Shauna, and then everybody else.
Any others?
I like Ty
and everybody
I
else.
think Ty's cool as a character.
Which one's Ty?
The politician.
Oh, Queer Kamala.
Yeah, I like her a lot.
She's a good villain.
I think her stuff gets pretty interesting and also leans into the horror stuff that I like. But that show, first of all, banger of an intro. Like every time.
Amazing intro! Finally saw it last night.
Intro ever. It's so good.
Yeah, it's against the law.
But I think it is just a really smart way of tackling the sort of like Lost, like how do you tell Lost again? Because that's what it reminds me of every time I watch it. I'm like, this is very Lost, very very Lost. But I think it handles it very well. I think it's got like a good vibe, a good idea, and a lot of just the tension they build up with the way they shoot things and angle things and light things is very well done. Season 2 just kind of falls off for me because I think that's where I wish this
It's
was
weird,
like a,
right?
no, I wish it was a limited series because right now it feels like this show does not know when or how it's going to end, much like Lost.
Oh, you mean like Lost?
And it makes me wish that there were more constraints on this because I think the story's really compelling, but I don't know if it's going to be compelling if they keep trying to find ways to keep pushing
I hate that.
that ball further down the field, you know?
I hate it. That have an end. It's a great concept. I'm intrigued, but have an end, please. If you keep dragging me along with like clues and stuff like that, I'm just not in.
It makes me think of Lost meets It, because it has the adult segments meets the kid segments and everything. I was also watching Dark, which is this German show, which has a little bit of a Lost vibe as well. And I think the thing that's amazing about Dark is that you have kid versions of the characters and adult versions of the characters, and it's shocking, the casting. It's like, that's the kid version of the adult. Like, you can instantly recognize them. I don't think it's as effective in Yellow Jackets. It's okay. Like, you can see a resemblance, I guess. But yeah, like I'm enjoying it. It's a lot bloodier than I was expecting. I did not realize that it was like actually kind of a horror show. So there's like some intense stuff going on there, but I was enjoying it for sure. So yeah, that's what I've been watching recently. How about you, Nadia?
Also been playing a game that I can't mention that I kind of want to be playing right now, but
Please look forward to us being able to talk about the games we can't play
please do. Soon. Quite soon.
soon.
But otherwise, I've been playing some more Final Fantasy VI, as I mentioned, and also a little bit of FF14, because I think, well, okay, so lull now. Maybe I'll make a healer finally. And I made a scholar, and I've been leveling it up like by myself. And like, okay, I'm finally ready to do a dungeon. This is it. And I screwed up so bad that I dropped out. Like, I was so embarrassed with how badly I healed everyone. Everyone kept dying. I took off. I'm really sorry. If you're in that party, I was so embarrassed. I had to abandon you all. And you were very patient with me. Thank you. But I was a lead ball on all of your feet. I'm sorry. I'm gone. Stupid scholar. Stupid fairy.
It's okay. I still love you, Nadia.
Well, don't count on me to heal you for anything, apparently, because goddamn.
Oh, I won't. Don't worry.
Good. I'm okay at tanking.
Healing.
I can be. I'm a good tank.
What is your preferred role? Like, just out of curiosity to everybody, like tank, healer, DPS.
I'm definitely
offensive
DPS.
tank.
Yeah. Or offensive tank. I'm good at tanking, but I'm always worried I'm not good enough. Like, but I will do it. Obviously, I will not heal. But DPS is generally my favorite. I like long range DPS, like Archer. My favorite class in FF14 is Machinist, because you have like everything Edgar had in FF6, and it's all freaking awesome. For my close DPS, I like Dragoon. I know it's almost always a useless class, but it's just so it has the coolest glam. So
Dragoon's like one of the best DPS. It's like I think
when I started,
one of the highest like parsing DPS right now.
Everyone used to like, be like, oh, they tank the floor. Then again, Red Mage came around, and that was the end of that.
Garbage disposal and then put the monsters in it. I think I like playing Dragoon in 14 a lot, mostly because I like turning on the garbage disposal. But I think if I had to think about my favorite class or my favorite character type to play, I keep thinking back to the character I made for our D&D. So like Warlock. So like a caster that has a lot of has a lot of spells and has a lot of utility and is able to do a lot and manipulate like the battlefield, so to speak. I like that sort of character where I can always have a really stupid answer for whatever we're doing and have like a weird solution. So Bard, Warlock, that sort of thing.
It's like the time we were, sorry, Kat, we were doing the FF14 stream for charity, and I don't even remember what you did, but you did something really stupid. You ran to an AoE, and Mike was just like, "No, Eric, why did you do that?" Like very scholarly, very teacher's voice.
Yeah, I got this. I
And
can
I'm like,
take
why?
this.
And Victor's losing his mind because it's like hurting cats.
I tanked an AoE just to see if I could.
Could you not?
Hey, I lived. I survived.
Folks, he could not.
We learned.
We learned a thing. Tanking AoEs. Let's do it, man.
I like a good archer that can do really good crowd control. I like being an offensive tank, sword and board type character. I'm not that big of a fan of being a caster.
Yeah,
pure
me neither.
tank I tend to find a little boring and also a little stressful because you're like this big hulking character who has to absorb all the damage, and if you're not careful, you will get melted and die, and then the rest of the party.
That's why your healer's got to be good.
Yeah, but on the flip side, like being a pure DPS, there's so much responsibility on you to like burst down enemies, and that takes actually a lot of skill, I think. So I'd rather be more of a offensive tank who can do a lot of things, can maybe do a little bit of healing. That's why I picked a paladin, for example.
Paladin's always a safe bet for tanking. I was a Dark Knight.
I do think our picks for the D&D stream were very revealing about what we like to play in RPG.
For sure.
It really was.
I do think that a rogue can be like, going into stealth and then popping up and backstabbing people can be a lot of fun. Back when I played Heroes of the Storm, if I wanted to mess around, I really enjoyed playing Nova because you would cloak, just hide in the bushes, basically, and then you would hear that dreaded which meant that you were about to die because which was a lot of fun.
I find that in Baldur's Gate, I did make a rogue, and it's a really good rogue, but I really prefer long distance. Like, I seem to favor bow over everything, especially with Asterion. He's just crazy.
Yeah,
I didn't use Asterion for like a big chunk of the game, and then I
use the win button.
And then I like fully equipped him with like the dual crossbows and all of the rogue abilities.
I didn't get
he
those.
was he would go first every time and just instantly murder somebody. Mm-hmm. It was great.
Just like spraying arrows everywhere.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome.
All right. Nadia, did I already ask you what you're playing? Right. You said that you're not playing anything. All right. That's the Tavern. Good stuff, everybody. Nadia, take us home.
I went on a ketamine trip last week. I don't know if you want to hear about it.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Kids, this was for Twitch reasons. This was intentional. This was done under
this was
Wait a minute. Why are we suddenly an 18+ stream? Holy crap!
No, this is a medical accompanied and approved process. Basically, I've resolved to talk a little bit more about the chronic pain I deal with day to day. As far as anyone knows, I do have fibromyalgia. I do have these weird inflammation markers. No one knows what they're from. And I do have arthritis. I started getting arthritis when I was 18. And my mom's family, has terrible, terrible bone issues. So there's no real mystery where it all came from. But the point is, I live with chronic pain. And Canada is very anti-opiate. Like, that's one of the reasons it introduced weed. Because they're like, okay, I can't even get, like, any sort of narcotic now that's like even like codeine, anything like that, forget it. They won't give it to me for anything. So they did approve me though for ketamine infusions, which is you do in a safe, controlled environment, medical staff everywhere, and for an hour you just get ketamine in your vein. And well, it depends on who you are, but I fly pretty high. I don't have any freakouts. I have seen people have freakouts, but I don't have any freakouts. But here's what happened my third time on Monday. My fourth time getting the infusion.
Fourth time historically, not fourth time in the same day, right?
No. I'd be quite dead.
Oh no, so, why are we banned from YouTube all of a sudden?
Usually, like, they control it so that you get a slow kind of ascent and just kind of stay there for a while, and then, like, you're good. It's about an hour is the process. And someone, I think it's because I talked to my doctor and she maybe accidentally started it too fast and too hard, you ever been on one of those roller coasters where it goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds? it was exactly like that. And I was like, oh dear. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. I knew where I was. I was pretty, okay with all of that. I just knew that my teeth went to outer space, and I just did not know what was going on. I usually listen to music during the process because, as you can imagine, it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
But I knew I had a problem when my phone started playing American Pie, and then the song was over suddenly. Like, it was over in 3 seconds, and that's a long song. So I said, "Oh shit, I think I'm losing track of time." And
I
what?
like that. Nadia's teeth went to outer space with the horses.
And the Nintendo. So then I kind of started to realize, okay, well, I might have a freak out, but I'm not going to, because one of the best pieces of advice my father ever gave me was, if you're ever having a bad trip along with it. If you fight it, you're gonna freak. And that is absolutely the best advice I could give anybody if you're ever kind of getting into any sort of substances, illegal, legal, supervised, or otherwise. Anyway.
To be clear, Nadia is not a doctor and is
No.
not giving medical advice.
YouTube, no.
Need to start having a lawyer on the stream.
If you have too much candy, trip along with the candy, okay? Otherwise you get cavities, and that's no good.
Lean into the Skittles.
Lean into the Skittles, please.
Steer into them.
Oh my god.
So,
Nadia
at
is a
some
K
point-
Nook.
No, this is a great Nook. Are you kidding me? So I finally kind of decided, okay, I gotta raise my hand, at least as well as I can, because my mind was over there and my body was over here, and my body's like, hey, Nadia, I'm gonna throw up. And I'm like, go for it, body. I don't give a fuck. So that's when everyone came running, and they immediately, like, got me off they cut the line and just made sure I was okay, and I was okay. And they're like, yeah, maybe it was a bit too much, too fast. Sometimes you have, those days. So after that, I was great. I was fine. And that was my ketamine trip. It's cat tranquilizers, people. I don't see what's so hard about that.
I like that super move said. Nadia literally just said she's a healer.
Oh, I am not a healer. I'm not a doctor. That's one for cat.
Kal-El, quick, plug the Patreon, because YouTube sure isn't going to be giving you money.
I'm not a doctor, but I play.
Oh
one
dear
of my
God, we've been
role-playing
demonetized. Oh no, our 100 views on YouTube will not be monetized this time.
Hey, we're getting there, man. With a story like
Yeah.
this, how could we not make it to the big times?
K-holes
So that
aren't
was-
dug in a day, darn it.
Also, welcome to all the Podcast Unlocked listeners who are joining us for the first time.
Oh, hi.
This is pretty much the vibe of the show on a regular basis. I saw somebody in the YouTube say, coming here from Podcast Unlocked. And I'm like, welcome.
Nice.
Yeah, this
Hi.
is pretty much what you're going to expect.
Hi.
You're not going to get a ketamine story, but I will talk more about chronic pain. I think it's a very important issue.
Yeah.
A lot of people live with it.
It's really brutal.
When I walk, it's like stepping on Legos. I'm not even exaggerating.
I'm sorry,
and
Nadia.
the infusions and stuff like that help. I also get like freezing in my back. It's not all drugs, unfortunately. I have like nerve blocks and whatnot for the arthritic parts of me, and I'm getting by. So I'm also a very big advocate of funding for chronic pain and stuff like that. It's like, if you want people to get off the opiates, you gotta send them to the K-hole, I guess.
Chronic pain is no joke, and it's so hard to live with.
It's hard to
and-
manage. It really is. Because
Yeah, it really
in my
is.
case, it's both nerves and it's bones, and it's just like... on the plus side, I don't want to scare anyone, because I'm as healthy as a horse. Other than that, all my vitals are great.
I'm
I'm
glad.
good. There's nothing in me that's going to say, hey, Nadia, you're going to die tomorrow or soon. I'm quite stable, knock on wood.
She's healthy as a horse from outer space.
There you go. Horses
Yes.
can't be astronauts, Miss Tron.
And that's it for this week's episode of Axe the Blood God. Thank you so much for listening. I've been your host, Kat Bailey. If you want to support the show, please leave us a review on the podcatcher of your choice. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod. And we also have merch, shop.bloodgodpod.com. We're heading to the post-show now to hang out with our lovely stars of Destiny. And this week we were joined by Amy, Anthrax Bees, Azixa, Drew RWX, Harvest Lunatic, JB, Kara313, Robo Riley, one of our lovely mods, Spooky Man, BR, Spyrus, Super Moop, and Zubat Man. We have a great crowd today.
We do.
So, yeah, so thank you all so much for your wonderful support. We're going to head over to the post show now. In the meantime, we'll be back next week to talk more about the genre that we love. But until then, for Eric, Nadia, and myself, happy adventuring.